So I want to talk about St. Peter a little bit more today. Some of you may remember that Peter was a major part of last Sunday's gospel reading. Last Sunday, Peter was praised for his faith and his wisdom. Yea, Peter, you're the best. This Sunday, we get the other side. Boo, Peter. I feel like "get behind me, Satan" is a pretty difficult thing to hear from anyone, let alone the guy you respect the most in the whole wide world. So we should talk about St. Peter because he's such a great representative for us all. I mean, if you have faith, but if you're also imperfect, then you should be able to identify with Peter to at least a certain degree. Peter's faith is real. He is passionate, he is caring, and he's willing to act for the sake of Jesus and for the kingdom of heaven. That's the good part of Peter. Hopefully we can all live that out in our lives at one point or another. So what's the bad part of Peter? What gets him into trouble in the gospel, and are we at risk of the same mistake? Well, the answer to that second question is very easy. Yes. The answer is definitely yes. We are at the same risk of that mistake. If Peter had a temptation, we probably have the same temptation today. Peter is not that different from us. So here is what gets him into trouble today. Jesus was talking about bad things that were inevitably going to happen in the future. I don't believe that Jesus could literally see the future, but he certainly knew that some things were unavoidable. He knew that his mission would end with a painful and humiliating death in Jerusalem. For Jesus, that much at least is fact. He speaks that way in the gospel on multiple occasions. And Peter, for his part, he just couldn't believe it. Not right that second, anyway. He heard Jesus talking in this way, and he just couldn't help it. He blurted out, "God forbid, Lord, no such thing will ever happen to you." In short, Peter was in denial that anything bad could happen to Jesus. That's an understandable error, right? I mean, he's the Son of God. He heals the sick. He expels demons. Every once in a while, he commands the very forces of nature. Surely he'll land on his feet. Sorry, Peter. No. Things are a little different with God. Bad things happen, and sometimes they're an absolutely necessary part of the story, even though it never feels that way at the moment. So, what does that mean for us? How are we at risk of the same mistake? Well, let's face facts here. We're Americans. If there's anyone here visiting from another country, pardon me, just kind of glazed through. We're Americans. We have great lives in this part of the world for the most part. We're not working 14-hour days in a sweatshop in some third world country for an amount of money that pays for food or medicine, but not both. We're not in a war-torn country where yesterday's neighbor is today's enemy. Life is pretty good here for the most part. And like Peter, we can sometimes fall into the trap of thinking that nothing bad can possibly happen to us. And sure, we can deal with things and accept things when they're obviously someone's fault. When we can point to one specific person, we can cope with that. It's the cancer diagnosis that rattles our faith. It's the clinical depression in your brain that just exists for no reason. It's when your kids grow up and want nothing to do with you, even though you were a really great parent. It's having your house broken into and feeling unsafe in your own home because of it. These moments in life can crush us if we let them. That is us being the other side of St. Peter. That's us refusing to face facts that life can be very painful and terribly unfair sometimes. And that is when it's best to turn once again to God and realize that His ways are not our ways. Sometimes the path we are meant to follow, sometimes it's not even paved. It's got brambles and roots, and sometimes it's so overgrown it looks like it isn't even there in the first place. But it's there. Absolutely it is there. Pain, disappointment, and suffering are not indications that God doesn't care about us or that He's somehow abandoned us. On this earth, we are called to follow Christ and to take up our cross and to know that the Father's glory will shine through us and that He will recognize us by our actions and our bravery in the face of struggle and temptation.